Welcome to episode 3 of Project Stresa, a timeline which starts with the pointed divergence of Austria being admitted into Germany after the First World War. In our last video, we saw the rise of the far right in France leading to an alliance with Italy. On top of these developments, the far right military in Spain succeeded in their civil war with a very friendly alignment towards the Latin Axis. The Mandate of Syria expired, and in its stead, a nationalist Syria was born, with claims all across the British mandates of the Levant. Britain and Germany began secretly rearming and formed an alliance in reaction to the Latin Axis and their maneuvers. Now, after the partition of Yugoslavia, annexation of Albania, and the demands of Yugoslavian subjugation from the Latin Axis, the people had had enough and resisted fascist imperialism. After declarations of war from the Latin Axis against Yugoslavia, Germany and Britain mobilized to defend Yugoslavian sovereignty, and thus the Second World War began. After the outbreak of the Second World War, Germany quickly mobilized its entire army to march into the demilitarized zones. As Italian and French troops marched into Yugoslavian lands, they made significant progress in Slovenia and southern Austria. Things were looking dire, and they needed the Germans to supply their front as soon as possible. The German army quickly moved to establish a favorable front. The Italian objective was to quickly cut off the Germans' capability from linking up with their Yugoslavian allies by capturing Graz. Supported by local Austrian nationalists, the Italian forces marched into Klagenfurt as German loyalists fled to the nearby mountains to organize partisan resistance. After the Alps were secured, Dollfuss would re-establish the Austrian state. In our timeline, Dollfuss attempted to establish and solidify a one-party state modeled after Italian fascism in Austria. However, he was assassinated by Nazis during an attempted Anschluss. In this timeline, he was a key member of the Austrian resistance to Germany. After his party was banned following Germany's ascension into the League of Nations, he operated a government in exile supported by the Italians. Now that he's returned to his home of Austria after 15 years, he's dead set on establishing an Austrian state, whether it was independent or not. German forces quickly organized in Vienna as they prepared to march to Graz, where they would clash with Italian forces. The German troops managed to reach Graz first and heavily fortified the city, anticipating an Italian attack. Italian forces soon came into conflict with the Germans as the first major battle of the Second World War began. With the invasion of Yugoslavia, the Little Entente was meant to be triggered, but the other two members of the alliance, Romania and Czechoslovakia, did not join. The Little Entente was a multilateral alliance between Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Yugoslavia, founded in 1920. Czechoslovakia was concerned regarding Germany's potential designs on the Sudetenland, and Romania's Prime Minister, Ion Antonescu, was favorable to the Latin Axis. Ion Antonescu was installed as the Prime Minister of Romania by the King Carol II. This appointment was forced with the significant rise of fascism in Romania, no doubt supported by the Latin Axis. Due to Ion's influence, Romania remained neutral in the Second World War, and Czechoslovakia followed suit. The Saxon allied diplomats would struggle to reverse this course as Germany faced their greatest test that the Republic would endure. The French and their Rhinish separatist collaborators were able to quickly establish supply lines due to the demilitarization. German forces quickly fortified the banks of the Rhine as their best line of defense. As the French continued to attempt to cross the Rhine and consistently failed, they waited patiently for another opportunity to breach the German defenses. As the Italian army continued to attempt to capture Graz, and consistently failed to do so, the French army and air forces were ordered to quickly eliminate Yugoslavia once and for all, in order to free up French and Italian troops to move from Yugoslavia to support the South and North German invasions. Upon wind of this development, the Yugoslavian army and king quickly scuttled out of their homeland and traveled into Germany, where they would lead a government in exile. After the Yugoslavian troops had managed to retreat properly, the German forces evacuated Graz as the Saxon allies moved back further to establish a more inland defensive line. In the now occupied lands of Yugoslavia, Croatian and Montenegrin states were set up as protectorates of Italy, while Serbia was established as a French puppet. The French wished to use Serbia's natural resources in order to fuel their war machine. Seeing the Germans and British consistently losing land to the Latin Axis, the Soviets gained confidence in their ability to reclaim their western territories. In 1919, the Soviets had attempted to invade Poland to spread their revolution to Europe. However, Poland had repelled the Soviet Union and managed to claim a significant amount of territory to their east. Now the Soviet Union had demanded this land to be conceded back to them. The Polish ultimately refused. Poland was then promptly invaded by the Soviets in 1940. With the Polish facing an invasion from the east, the Saxon allies fumbled in how they were to respond. British diplomat Neville Henderson and German diplomat Hans Adolf soon met with Soviet diplomat Molotov in regards to Soviet expansionism. Molotov had offered the Saxon allies a deal: leave Poland to die, and the Soviets would transfer the former German territory of Poland to Germany. The Romanian lands of Poland would become a forcibly neutral state, which would serve as a buffer along the German and Soviet Union. The deal was truthfully compelling, especially for Hans, who supported the German revanchism. The Saxon allies continued to stall negotiations, wishing to see how the Soviets would perform against the Polish before acting. In reality, Stalin's designs were nowhere near as conservative as Molotov had let on. He and his supporters wished to claim all lands of the former Russian Empire, including the Baltics and Bessarabia. Molotov knew that there would be no deal with the Saxon allies if he had revealed their true intentions. Instead, the Soviets would annex these territories one by one as the capitalists and fascists bled each other dry. After the Polish had attempted to sign a deal with the Saxon allies, they soon turned to the Romanians. In our timeline, Poland and Romania had signed an alliance, promising each other to defend each of their countries from foreign aggression. However, the pro-Latin Axis government refused to provide Poland any support. The reality was that the Latin Axis had been continuously pressuring the Romanians to join their alliance, which was strictly anti-war with the Soviets. The fascist government of Ion Antonescu continuously collaborated with the designs of Paris and Rome. His king, Carol II, was personally amicable with the Allies. The division of the two leaders and their conflicting alignments would only continue to stall any proper united front from being established. As the French and Italian forces continued to attempt to take Vienna, a breakthrough was made when the Hungarian kingdom had ended their regency by electing the Duke of Austria, now King of Croatia, Prince Aimone de Savoia, to become King of Hungary. For decades, the kingdom was kingless, as the regent, Nicholas Horthy, continuously prevented any coronations, seeing them as a diplomatic tool in order to gain favor with another great power. In our timeline, the crown was almost given to the King of Romania, since if the Hungarian kingdom was also ruled by the King of Romania, the disputed region of Transylvania would be ruled under personal union, allowing Hungary to reunite with Transylvania in an admittedly pitiful way. Following the logic of the personal unification of Hungary with the lost territory of Transylvania, the Duke of Austria and the King of Croatia would become the King of Hungary. Thus, the Hungarians crowned Aimone King of Hungary under the name of Istvan. Hungary had wasted no time in their collaboration with the Latin Axis, as the eastern flank of Vienna was underdefended. Hungarian forces, with Italian and French support, soon enveloped Vienna. The city was now completely surrounded, with no supply lines to reinforce the beleaguered defenders. With Hungary being admitted into the Latin Axis as a full member, the first nation to react was Romania. Now surrounded by powers aligned to the Latin Axis directly, it was soon apparent to them that they would be the next to be partitioned. Hungary would gain Transylvania, the Bulgarians would gain southern Dobruja, and the Soviets would gain Bessarabia. Carol II promptly dismissed Antonescu as prime minister and reappointed the pro-allied prime minister of Gheorghe Tatarescu, requesting their ascension into the Saxon allies. Carol II also declared his support for the Polish and joined the Second Soviet-Polish War against the Soviet Union. Once the Romanians had joined the Saxon allies, the Polish were now included in the alliance. With the Hungarian and Austrian states closing in on their borders, Czechoslovakia had the direct concern of the Hungarians and Austrians invading their lands and joined the Saxon allies as well. While the Latin Axis had secured a key ally in Hungary, they soon faced the consequences of their decision as 3 new nations joined the Saxon allies, swelling their numbers. They had also gained a loose ally in the Soviet Union, who was now putting pressure on these new allies. Would the Saxon allies be able to turn the tide with their new allies? Or have they signed their death warrants by fighting the Soviet Union? Tune in next time as we enter the next phase of the World War, and the Imperial Japanese join the fight. If you like this kind of video, please give it a like, and if you want more in-depth alternate history videos, please consider subscribing.
Your LoreDad is going to go out and get some milk. I'll be back maybe in a week.